Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Roadmap and Strategy Update for SDL TMS and SDL Managed Translation. My name's Kate and I'll be your host. With the recent release of SDL TMS and the imminent release of SDL Managed Translation, we're hosting this webinar to introduce new capabilities, features and improvements in these translation management products. We'll also outline the plans for upcoming releases of these products in 2019. As well as giving a brief overview of how we're evolving our cloud capabilities in SDL Language Cloud. Your SDL speakers today are David Pooley, Senior Product Manager for SDL TMS, and Parnell, Product Manager for SDL Managed Translation. We expect today's webinar will last about 45 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. I'll now pass you over to David, who will begin the presentation.
Thanks, Kate. Welcome all. So this is the agenda for what we're going to cover today. We're going to just take a brief look at the themes and what our strategies are for SDL translation management. We're going to have a little look at the recent releases for TMS and Managed Translation. We're going to have some videos, hopefully as well, in there to showcase some of the new features. We'll do the roadmaps. As Kate mentioned, we'll also cover a little bit about SDL Language Cloud, and then we'll have some Q&A. And hopefully, yes, 45 minutes or less, and that will give us plenty of time for questions. So, regarding the SDL translation management themes, they are broadly split into these 5 categories. We have our connectivity theme, which is providing access into and out of our translation management platforms for all sorts of content repositories. We have the language cloud theme, previously referred to as convergence, which is our strategy for centralizing all our language technology in a cloud platform in a reusable way so that we can share that technology across all of our existing products. Security and performance, I think that's reasonably self-explanatory. We obviously are interested in having very secure systems. It's very much a focus of current products that they need to be secure. User experience, and then of course customer satisfaction. So we're just going to look at the first one of those now and have a little look at connectivity, and Ian is going to talk you through a couple of slides on this, and then we'll have a little video to showcase some of that connectivity.
Thanks, David, and hello everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. So connectivity plays a very important role within SDL language technology. So we have a roadmap, a strategy specific to connectors, and to help us deliver that, we have a dedicated engineering team. Within the slide that we're showing you here, clearly there are a lot of names and logos, so I'm just going to try and dissect that down a little to kind of explain what this means. So within this diagram, we're covering both connectors and integrations from our web platform, SDL Tridion, and also connectors that relate to our language platform. We also are including in here the connectors that have been developed and are owned by SDL. We also have a number of connectors in here that have been developed through approved third parties. And what isn't included in here, but something I wanted to point out, is that we have an increasing number of customers that have been developing their own connectors directly using our APIs that we make available from our products. Now, if we're talking a little bit more detail about the connectors that SDL have developed, we categorize those as two types. So we have what we call an embedded connector. So this implies the localization workflow is initiated and driven from the external content system. So some people kind of refer to this as the push model. Now, these generally require much more effort in developing and maintaining, and as a result, we have fewer of these. The obvious benefit here is that users don't have to leave their content system to manage the localization flow. We also have what we call a connector framework that is available through SDL Managed Translation. So this flow allows users to connect and authenticate with an external system, and this might be a content system or a file repository, and they can then drive and initiate the localization flow directly in the Mantra user interface. So they're pulling files directly in, and then the localization flow continues once it hits the TMS system. We have a video a little later in the presentation just to demonstrate how that works. But again, the benefits of that connector framework approach, this pull mechanism, is the UI and the process is consistent regardless of which system you're connecting to. It reduces the friction and the risk of error that comes with cutting and pasting, importing and exporting, and so on. And the implementation effort is comparatively simple compared with the embedded approach that I described earlier. And there isn't a huge amount of training overhead that comes with that. If we just also then take a look at the current picture for our connector strategy and also the items that we are planning to work on into 2019. So I'll walk through this diagram from left to right. So we have kind of our machine translation integrations on the left. So as I'm sure everyone on the webinar is aware, that there's been a recent content explosion, and a lot of that content is not it's not practical to localize that in the traditional way. So I'm referring to the likes of user-generated content, real-time communication, chat, collaboration, and so on. So that content boom, allied to the increase in quality that we're now able to get from machine translation, so neural machine translation specifically, it means that machine translation is the solution that we're positioning for those types of content stream. So SDL have built a number of direct machine translation integrations from systems like Salesforce. And so the Salesforce Instant Translation app, for example, is used extensively by SDLSLs internally. If we move on to the machine translation section in here, I've talked about this in a reasonable amount of detail on the previous slide. The logos that you see in here, these reference the embedded integrations that we have, or the push integrations with some of our own content systems, Tridion Sites and Tridion Docs, but also some external systems which have proven very popular since we've launched these and made these available. So with systems like Hybris, Adobe Experience Manager. We continue to build new features and enhancements around our connector strategy. So in-context review is something that we're working on at the moment. So with this, we're essentially maintaining the layout and the structure of the target document. So users that need to translate, review, edit as part of the localization workflow, they can see how any changes they make will impact on the layout of the file. And we're also looking into ways that we can support continuous localization or continuous translation within our language technology products. And again, we will continue to widen the reach of our cloud connectors as and when the market demand dictates that. We have around 100 connectors available at the moment, and that continues to grow on a frequent basis. So we have a video which will start up shortly that talks specifically around the connector framework that has been built in SDL Managed Translation. So this is the pull connectors that I described earlier. So as you'll see from the demo, a user can see a list of external systems content systems, file repositories that are available to them. So in this case, the user is choosing to connect with Oracle Eloqua. They're taken out into Eloqua to authenticate and confirm that they're happy for Managed Translation to connect with their Eloqua environment. And once they have connected, they can go through the project creation process in the same way as they would do normally. So they enter a name for their project, specify what languages they want to translate into, any custom fields that are relevant to their environment. But when they come to choose the files, they are taken out into that external system. There is a standard file browser that a user can see, a hierarchy representing their folder structure in that system, and they can choose the files that they want to send out for translation. So still very similar to what users are used to working with when they're translating files from their local computer or their desktop. Okay, so if we now just take a look at some of our recent releases that we've done. First, we'll cover Managed Translation, and then we'll move on to talk about TMS. So again, from left to right, I'm not going to say too much more around the connectors, as we've obviously covered that in detail over the last couple of slides. As mentioned, we have a rapidly increasing number of connectors now available within the platform, and we'll continue to develop new connectors according to market demand. Something else to mention, I talked about customers that are developing their own connectors using our rich API. Again, we've continued to extend that throughout the course of this year, and we will continue to do so into next year. So as and when we develop new features that we want to expose and make available through the API, we will do, or if we have specific requests or requirements raised to us by our customers, then again, we're generally very supportive of making those changes or making those features possible through our APIs. David mentioned earlier around our language cloud or our convergence initiative at SDL. So there are a number of kind of elements within that we have delivered on throughout the course of this year. The single sign-on is clearly very important. We want a user to be able to authenticate with any number of our products and services with a single set of user credentials. We have also integrated with two of our core underlying language cloud capabilities, so the online editor and our cloud terminology module are now available and accessible from SDL Managed Translation. And this year also saw the first major UI iteration that we've done in SDL Managed Translation since we launched it a couple of years ago now. So again, the objective here is to try and make all of our products follow the same user experience and to look the same. So we have this theme, an internal theme that we call Graphene, and Managed Translation was adapted and updated to conform to that UX theme earlier this year. As part of the security and performance, we were required to make a number of updates according to that to make sure that we're compliant with GDPR regulations that took effect in May earlier this year. So in short, respecting a user's right to be forgotten, and also ensuring that we have auto deletion mechanisms in place to make sure any content that may include personally identifiable information is cleaned up periodically as and when it needs to be. For user experience, I mentioned the Graphene UI that went into production a couple of months ago now in August. Separate to that, we have also released an organization filtering feature. So the intention here is to allow users to be able to drill down to specific sub areas of their environment. So that might represent different organizational departments, different content streams, different geographic locations, but this is all in accordance with the customer's organizational structure and hierarchy that's been defined for them. So again, a nice user experience feature to make sure that users can get to the content that they need to with the minimal of effort or complexity. And then finally for this slide, we have made a couple of features available that fall under customer satisfaction. So the first in here is a request that came through our community ideation website, which we'll talk in a little bit more detail on later on in the deck. So with the TM search, we're essentially providing users with greater insight and visibility of their TM content. So TMs have become less of a black box. If we have a user, whether that be a content owner or a reviewer, if they need or want to be able to perform a quick search of a string to see if it's been translated previously, how it's been translated, when it was translated, they can do all of that through the Managed Translation user interface, all still following the same very simple and intuitive design that we've maintained with Mantra throughout the last couple of years. And then finally, the product broadcasting feature. So this gives us a means of communicating much better and more effectively with our customer base. So Mantra is a little different to some of our other language technology products because it is truly cloud-based. With that, we have a very regular release cadence. Releases are generally frequent but quite small in nature, but that's all in the interest of us being agile and allowing us to iterate new features, fixes very quickly and making them available to customers as soon as they're ready. So with that, we have a requirement to keep in touch and keep users informed of these new updates on a regular basis. So this mechanism, this product broadcasting mechanism, allows us to do that. So users can see directly when they log into the system what's changed since the last time they logged in. We can also use the same mechanism to notify users of any planned maintenance windows or any other types of information that we feel is relevant to the customer base as a whole.
Okay, thanks, Ian. So just going back onto SDL TMS, or Translation Management System. Similar, obviously under the same 5 themes. Some of these are very similar between Mantra and TMS, so I won't go over those in too much detail, I would say. On the connectivity side, we put something in called custom interfaces, which allows you to move out of TMS as part of the normal way of working and work in a different interface. Now, there's a very nice video about this up on the community site, which shows TMS sending files to Trello, and from Trello, sorry, not from Trello, we also did a Trello, it shows it sending files to Jira. And within Jira, then managing the translation workflow in a sort of Kanban type environment before then bringing those files back into TMS and carrying on with the workflow. So if anyone's not seen that video, it's a very nice video up on the community site. I would urge you to go and take a look. Under the Language Cloud banner, you can see exactly the same things as we saw with Managed Translation. So we have that single sign-on. We have the SDL Online Editor, which is available now. So rather than the traditional browser-based editor in TMS that has been there for many years, we now have the new SDL Online Editor available, which is a much more feature-rich environment. And the important thing, obviously, with these Language Cloud capabilities is that they are shared across the products. So it's learn once and use everywhere, which is going to be pivotal for us going forward. Cloud terminology, as Ian mentioned earlier. Cloud filtering is something that's all but there in TMS now, and that's the capability to actually have your files filtered within a central cloud-based filtering platform so that we are no longer then dependent on having to install new versions of TMS, for example, or to provide hot fixes or whatever when there's a problem with a filter or we need a new release of a filter. If that's going to be in the cloud, then we're going to be able to pick those up immediately. For security and performance, yes, we also had, GDPR was a big topic back in May this year when everyone had to be compliant. Important to note that TMS, the goal here for TMS was to allow our customers to be compliant. So it's not down to the software per se, it's down to the people using it and the things such as the right to be forgotten and being able to prove that you are removing data about individuals is important there. So we put some things in there. We put some features in there to allow you to automatically delete data after a period of time, and just things around that area which allows customers who are using SDL TMS to be GDPR compliant. In the recent release that we've just done a couple of weeks ago, SDL TMS 12.2, we've had a big performance boost. We've had a re-engineering, a back-end tune-up, if you will, of the system. And so we are now seeing much higher throughput in TMS 12.2 than we did in previous releases. We also have put some more security features in there. Now, it does say on here, it does say high trust. All those security features that we've put in TMS 12.2 are based on TMS being high trust compliant. It's not quite there yet. There'll be one more feature around security event logging that's coming in a future release. But most of the features that you see in there, if you look at the release notes for TMS 12.2, things about forcing users to change passwords, having a minimum and maximum login time while you're on the login screen, not allowing you to use sort of easily guessable passwords, forcing you to change your password after a certain amount of time, automatically deleting users that haven't logged in for say 3 months, etc. And all of that stuff is all around high trust. And as I say, you'll find more information on that in the release notes for 12.2. That's also, I'd have to say, the back-end tune-up that we did is also, as you can see there on the slide, it's under the customer satisfaction, because we did have quite a lot of feedback from the customers asking or inquiring about, speed of throughput and how they could make TM apply or TM update go a bit faster, and all of that's been fed into there. So I know it appears twice, but it does fall under those two themes. And then we have the Studio plugins that we've been working on this year. So those are twofold. There's one where you can, as a translator, you can access your Studio inbox from within, access your SDL TMS inbox from within Studio, so without having to go into the browser, without having to download files and then open that project in Studio, you can work in Studio and get access to your files directly from there. There's also another plugin that allows you to, if you have sufficient rights, you can use your SDL TMS translation memory from within Studio so that you can do all your TM lookups and concordance searches and everything else from within Studio, again, using the TM that's hosted in TMS. So that's the thing that we've done recently in TMS. I think we're now going to have a little video on the cloud terminology, which Ian will talk you through.
Yep, thanks, David. So before I run through the roadmap on the Mantra side, we have a demo just to walk you through the cloud terminology feature that we will be releasing imminently. So as you'll see, we have a user that's logged into Mantra, but they now have the ability to view a list of all the term bases that are available to them. So the key thing to mention here is this is all cloud-based. It's all running through the browser. There's no need for users to download client applications and so on. It's all online. Now, in addition to allowing reviewers or users involved in the localization flow to see term lookups, we're also giving the ability to manage their terminology from within the same managed translation interface that they're familiar with. So we're going to walk through some of the core features that are required to do that. So you'll see in here we're loading an existing term-based definition to create a new term base, all done through a very kind of simple wizard flow to support the user through that process. They can then navigate to that term base, add, remove, edit terms, import terms. So this happens to be a file that was exported from multi-term. So as that suggests, this is all backwards compatible with our existing toolset. Once the content of that term base has been imported, the user can search for terms and create new entries, create translated versions of that term. And as we'll come on to do here, we can also create attributes or custom information that we store against the term. So in this example here, we're setting a status field for this English term to be approved, which will then manifest itself down to all translated terms. So all of the core features that you would expect to be provided from a terminology solution is available through the browser, through the same interface. And just at the end of the video there, you'll have noticed that once your term base has been created, the content has been loaded into the term base. The users involved in the localization supply chain are able to view the terms that came from that from the terminology databases that they've defined.
Just checking in, is that one on the community as well, that video?
Yes, yeah. So this, along with a number of other videos, are all available from the Managed Translation community site. So if anyone would like to go back and take a look, these videos at a later date, they're more than welcome to do so. We regularly upload new videos to the community site, so I'd encourage anyone that hasn't previously registered to do so.
I think there's also a YouTube channel, is that right?
Yep, yeah, and we also have an SDL community YouTube channel where the same video contents are uploaded to.
Okay, thanks Ian. So we're going to cover the roadmaps and timelines now for Managed Translation and Translation Management System. And first of all, yes, I'm going to hand back to you, Ian, and to look at SDL Managed Translation.
Okay, thanks, David. So we've obviously talked already in a fair amount of detail about the releases that have been delivered so far this year. Still to come this year, we have the Cloud Terminology module that we've just seen in the video demo. I mean, I would say that it wasn't, it was a little unusual from my perspective, at least, in terms of how we normally release features, because there were a number of kind of interdependent products where Cloud Terminology implied that there were some updates required in those products. I mean, we wanted to ensure when we made Cloud Terminology available that all of the users, the different personas that are involved in the process were able to access Cloud Terminology. So the implications there are that we needed some changes in SDL TMS to support the configuration of Cloud Terminology. We obviously needed to expose that Cloud Terminology UI in Managed Translation, so users were able to go in and create, manage, and update their term bases. But then we also wanted to make sure that we could support Cloud Terminology from our desktop tool, so SDL Trados Studio. So there are a number of different products, and obviously the releases that come with those products that were needed to support Cloud Terminology. But we are pretty much there now, and as I mentioned, we will imminently be making Cloud Terminology available for release. What I would say, if we have anybody on the webinar today that was interested in learning more about Cloud Terminology, please get in touch with us via the usual means, and we'll be more than happy to get into more of the detail with you around that and see if that's something that would be appropriate for you. Coming up in Q1 2019 next year, so we will continue along the track of our language cloud or convergence initiatives. So two elements in here related to that. We will be providing project managers of an LSP, a language service provider, with a cloud inbox, so as an alternative to what they would currently access from TMS. So this is essentially allowing that project manager to manage quotes that they receive from customers, allows them to manage the distribution and the delivery of localization projects to their customer. I talked around in context review earlier in the webinar, so the first version of this will be made available in Q1 next year. So initially, this will be geared towards the content coming from Adobe Experience Manager. So this will form part of our existing connector, but it will allow users to view the target document in the context of the source application. Now, that will be followed by, or we'll be using the same UI, UX framework to support additional formats and other content systems in the future. So Adobe Experience Manager is the first iteration of that, if you like, but similar to the connector framework that we have in Mantra, we'll be using the same in-context review framework to support additional formats and content systems. There's also one other feature that we have planned for Q1 2019. So this is it's a request that comes up regularly from our existing customer base via the community channel, and this is the ability to update existing or in-flight projects. So again, there's quite a lot involved in that. There's different requirements, different types of data that a user may want to be able to modify after they have initially created their project. So again, we'll be releasing these features on a cyclical and iterative basis. For the first version, we will be allowing users to update certain fields, input fields related to their project. So the project name, for example, the due date of the project, a user will be able to go in and modify that after they've previously created their project. But again, in the future, we'll be extending that to support additional capabilities, so the ability to update any custom input fields that a user has defined in their environment, or metadata you might refer to it as. But also, we're planning to allow users to upload or update source files associated with the project, switch, add new language pairs for a particular project. So they're all features that will kind of roll under this particular feature, but will be made available iteratively throughout the course of next year.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Just to cover off on SDL TMS. So obviously we've delivered 3 releases this year so far. 12.2, as I say, released a couple of weeks ago. Significant performance improvements that we've seen and we've tested ourselves internally, and its enhancements. One thing I didn't mention earlier was the infrastructure update. So now we're supporting the latest versions of Windows operating systems and SQL Server, so that you can migrate up to those if you so wish. Going forward into 2019, we're looking at some, again, as I touched on earlier, the high trust requirements. We are going to be finishing off the one last piece of that to do with security, information event management, and logging that information out so that it can be reported upon. A couple of things, again, coming back from the community, we have an ideas site on the community. We have an ideas page where you can submit your ideas for new features and functionality that you'd like to see in any of our products. And a couple of the ones that we've had on the TMS ideas site, we're going to be looking at implementing those in Q1. So that's being able to override the QA check failures for a whole job. So doing that as a batch operation rather than one by one, which we are assured will be a huge time saver for some people. And also, when you're managing your cost models, obviously there's a lot of, for anyone that ever does this in SDL TMS, there are a lot of boxes on that screen, a lot of numbers, a lot of places to click and fill out that information, whereas that information would probably be much easier to manage in something like a spreadsheet. So we're looking at being able to export the cost model out to a spreadsheet where you can make your changes there and then bring that back in. Also, an improvement around how you link your language cloud account. If you are wanting to use cloud terminology or SDL Online Editor or both, the way that you currently link your accounts between SDL TMS and SDL Language Cloud, whilst functional, it's not ideal, and so we're going to be looking at improving upon that in the release coming out in Q1. Okay, just at the end now, I know we've talked a lot about Language Cloud, so I thought I'd cover off a little bit about what it is today and where we're going with SDL Language Cloud. So as of today, obviously we have a number of products in our language technology product portfolio. It's not just Managed Translation and TMS. Obviously we have WorldServe, we have Studio, we have GroupShare, we have Solo as well, and others around that. But as of today, SDL Language Cloud is a platform where we are hosting some capabilities, and those capabilities can be consumed by any or all of these products and are already being consumed by these products. So, as I say, translation memory, cloud-based translation memory, the cloud-based filtering, cloud terminology, machine translation, online editor, all being used as of today by the products that you can see on the screen there. As we then now move forward through 2019, in our SDL Language Cloud platform, yes, we have those 5 that I've already talked about, but we have more coming in as we go. So this is going to be a big push for us in 2019. We're looking at having a sort of beta version of a new platform/product available at the end of Q2 with a sort of general availability around about Q3. So we're going to be able to create your projects in Language Cloud. You'll be able to do costing, quoting, a nice dashboard, misspelt, that you can use in there. We'll have things like heat maps and where you can drill down into what you actually need to do and the areas you need to concentrate on. An analytics module in there so you can do reporting and KPI tracking and everything else, workflow management, and it's all going to be underpinned by this new not only linguistic AI but also generically more artificial intelligence type features. So the linguistic AI is something that we've already developed. We've been looking at how we can implement that in the best way in many of our other products. It does things like automatic content analysis and classification so that when you submit your content, you can say, oh, I can see that this is a piece of marketing material in English, and therefore I think, these are the best translators to use, this is the best workflow to send it down, and things like that. So it's very clever AI being developed out in one of our science centers in California that I don't totally understand, and those guys are much cleverer than I am. But yeah, so we've got that, and then also we'll be building in as we go more AI type capabilities. So as I say, we can pick the right workflow, we can pick the right translators, we know about their availability, we know about their productivity, we know about their quality, and we can route everything through in the right way. So that's SDL Language Cloud. It's going to be a big push for us in 2019, and where we can, obviously, we'll be looking to reuse these capabilities in the existing products as well. So the SDL Language Cloud, it's not only going to be, there's not going to be a new product there, but it's also a platform that we can reuse in our existing products as well. So I think that probably takes us to the end. What I will just say, as we've mentioned a few times in this call, we do have a community. It's a great place to find out about what we're doing with our products, find videos, find events like this, feedback, present ideas. The product managers are all tasked with looking at those ideas and giving feedback and, you know, maybe implementing them or enhancing them or getting people to comment on them and provide some extra input into what we could do with those ideas. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about the products or contributing to the products, please go to the community site, sign up, and join the appropriate groups. Sometimes you'll need to be granted permission to join those groups, but if you're an existing customer of that particular product, then you'll be accepted straight away. So with that, I think we are going to Q&A, and Kate, have you had anything in from the attendees?
Okay, so we've got a few questions that have come in. If you have got a question, please pop it into the Q&A box in the Ask a Question tab, and we'll hopefully be able to answer that. So yeah, we've got a couple of questions come in. The first one is, how much will SDL Language Cloud cost for SDL TMS, SDL Managed Translation customers?
Thanks, Kate. So pricing isn't yet finalized for SDL Language Cloud. That's something that will be available closer to the product launch, which we're pushing towards in early Q3 next year.
Thank you. The next question we've got is, how can I get access to SDL Language Cloud?
So for SDL Language Cloud, we're planning to run a beta in Q2. So as David mentioned, we're kind of pushing towards a release in early Q3. So ahead of that, we are planning to run a beta. So if we have any customers on the call today that are interested in learning more about that, then again, please kind of get in touch with us via your kind of regular contact at SDL.
Okay, the next question we've got is, does this mean SDL won't invest in TMS or SDL Managed Translation?
No. We will continue to invest in TMS. We will continue to invest in Managed Translation. They are widely adopted solutions, and obviously they're very important to us as products that we want to continue to evolve. However, our main innovation platform will be SDL Language Cloud. But as I said earlier, some of those innovations that we're putting into SDL Language Cloud, we will then be able to consume into the existing products. So things like, when if TMS and Managed Translation are using translation memory that's hosted in the cloud, that translation memory that's hosted in the cloud will have the new innovations. So have things like fuzzy match repair and context matching, both of which are not available today in those two products.
Oh, and the next question is, what will the migration process look like?
Okay, yeah, so obviously, there will be a migration path from any of our existing products to the SDL Language Cloud product when it's available. It's very important for us that that migration is going to be seamless without any loss of, traditional things like loss of leverage or loss of functionality. We don't have a concrete final plan for that migration process, if you like, right now. But as we move closer to the general availability of Language Cloud in early Q3 next year, then we'll be starting to publish migration strategies and plans nearer the time.
Okay, thanks. We don't seem to have any more questions at this time. If you have got a burning question, then please pop it in the Q&A box. Okay, as we haven't got any further questions, we'll just wrap up the webinar. Before we close, we just wanted to share the following and outline that, as I'm sure you're aware, as with all our product roadmap and strategy sessions, today's presentation is intended to outline our general product direction and is for information purposes only, and is not a commitment to deliver any features or functionality. So I just want to say thank you for attending the webinar today. We hope you found today's session useful, and then we'll share the recording with you shortly. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.